We're a small welcoming club set up by me together with Stowe Family Law to provide group support for anybody who's navigating their way through a breakup or divorce in a safe and friendly environment with other people who are going through the same experience. So I'll just introduce some of us very briefly. My name is Claire Macklin. I'm a breakup and divorce coach, and I support clients through the emotional ups and downs of any breakup with confidence and dignity. I'm a qualified coach. I'm a single divorced mum to 2 teenage boys, so I'm really looking forward to today's presentation on dating, because I'm sure I'll be able to apply some of it for myself. Stowe Family Law are the largest specialist family law firm in the UK with offices all over the country, and they work really hard to provide the best service possible for their clients and collaborate with all sorts of other professionals like myself and Stephanie, who I'll introduce in a moment, to give a bespoke service for every client. And today, Stowe are represented by Victoria Cannon and by Laura Buckley. Stephanie is our sort of resident financial advisor. Stephanie's the owner of Casaran Financial Planning. And she has over 20 years experience in financial services. She works with clients through divorce to help them make the right financial decisions for their future, including pensions, investments, mortgages, and family protection. And today, I'm really delighted that we are joined by Laura Buckley, who is a specialist dating coach and matchmaker. And I'm really excited to hear what she has to say. Laura, I'll ask you to introduce yourself in a moment. But before we start, if you're watching and you want to ask any questions, please use the Q&A or the chat box at the bottom, and I'll keep my eye on those so that we can ask any questions as we go along. And there'll also be time, hopefully, for questions at the end. So, Laura, if I may, hand over to you.
Sure. Hi, I'm just going to share my screen so that I've got a few slides to keep us going. So bear with me a second. Can you see it?
We can.
Excellent. Okay. So hello, everyone. My name is Laura Buckley, and yeah, I'm a dating coach and a matchmaker. I just wanted to introduce myself a little bit and just give you a little bit of background about me. I've been doing this now for the best part of about 18 months, I think. But before that, I was a probation officer for about 20 years. So it's been a bit of a shift moving from drugs and gangs and guns into dating and relationships and love, but it's been really, really good fun. And there are actually quite a lot of similarities because it's still people and behavior and patterns. It's just in the dating world, and it's so much fun. I love talking to people about dating. When I first got into it, I was a little unsure about whether it was the right thing for me, because I was prior to being married, I was single for 11 years. I made all the mistakes in dating. Even though I was a good probation officer and I could spot a liar a mile off and I could put in boundaries and I could put in structure, when it came to dating, I made all the mistakes. I just got it all horribly wrong. And I do wish that when I've been single, I'd had a dating coach, because it might have helped me get where I wanted to be a little bit quicker and put some of those 11 years behind me. But anyway, you can't change that. So here I am. Having made all the mistakes, I'm now trying to help people to stop making those mistakes and to do things a little bit differently. So let's get going. So when I've got a new client, whether it be a matchmaking client or a dating coach client, one of the things that I really want to be clear with them about, and one of the things they need to ask themselves, is whether they're ready to date. It's the big one. And I think given this, the Break-up Club, we're talking about getting back into dating. And one of the biggest questions is, are you ready? And if the answer is, yes, I'm ready to date, I really want to get out there, I'm ready to get back on the horse, I'm ready to meet someone new, then I want you to ask yourself, how do you know? How do you know that you're ready to date? Because I think a lot of people come to me when they think they're ready to date, and then they're like, yeah, let's go, let's do it. But then when we dig a little bit deeper, they're not ready to date. So what I've seen quite a lot of is matchmaking clients who think they're ready to get out there, then become coaching clients because they realize they're not quite ready to get out there. It's difficult, because you need to ask, if you're asking yourself, am I ready? How do I know when I'm ready? It's the big question. How do you know? Because it's different for every different person. So for me, I like to know that my clients are looking to date because they are ready to be in a loving, committed relationship, not that they're looking to date because they need to get over the person that they've just split up with. So it's really important to ask yourself that question and to be clear why you want to date. Why is it important for you to do it? Why now? So that's where we need to start. One of the things I get asked about all the time, every time there's a journalist who wants to ask some questions, every time a client wants to ask some questions, it's always about red flags. So I could talk about red flags for days and days and days and days on end. There are quite a few that you could be looking for. But for me, these are the three main red flags that are really quite important. So if you've started to date somebody, you need to be looking at the way they treat other people. How do they speak to bus drivers, or somebody working in a cafe, or somebody who they work with, a colleague, a family member? How do they speak to other people? Because for me, this is really important to understand how they treat other people is indicative of how they're going to treat you down the line. And if you're getting a bad vibe from somebody and the way they treat other people, you really need to listen to that red flag, because that's quite a big one. The other one, which always catches people out, is the way they talk about their ex-partners. She's a crank. She's crazy. If people are using this kind of language about lots of different exes, then for me, that's a really big red flag, because that's really negative language. Is that how they're talking about you? Is that how they talk about women in particular? For me, I think it's just something that really needs to be noticed and thought about. And I've lost my train of thought. It just needs to be something that you need to think about. How are they talking about their exes? Is the language negative, and what does that mean? The final one is something that comes up quite a lot, and it's a relatively new term which not everybody's particularly up to speed with, but I don't know how many people have heard of the term love bombing. I think it's probably something that everybody who's dated recently or in the last 10 years or so has potentially had happen to them, but may not have realised exactly what it is that's happening to them. It can be very subtle, or it can be very full on. So I've had experience of it when I've been dating, when people who I haven't even met yet, who I'm just talking to, or having random conversations with, will text you in the morning, they'll text you in the evening, they text you with overfamiliar language, calling you my love, my this, that, and it's just a bit, it gives you the ick a little bit, or it should give you the ick a little bit. And if it doesn't, then you need to be really aware of it. So love bombing essentially is when somebody is very, very full on with you, very, very quick, giving you a lot of affection, a lot of attention, even, as I said, when potentially you haven't even met them yet. It's quite tricky to navigate, especially when you're coming out of a relationship and you're a bit vulnerable, because it does feel nice, or it can feel nice, because you've got somebody giving you attention and saying, you're amazing, this is great, I'm really into you, I want to spend loads of time with you, I want to be with you forever. But too much, too quick is a real red flag. There's lots of evidence to link love bombing with potentially abusive relationships. I'm not saying that everybody who love bombs is an abuser, but there is a lot of evidence in place at the moment which does indicate that it's a real concerning behaviour. So it's a really difficult one to watch out for, because when you're in it and you feel like you're getting loads of attention, which is great, it's hard to step back and say, what is this? Why am I getting all this attention from somebody who doesn't it's one of the biggest red flags to keep an eye out for. I mean,
Laura, just to add a little bit to that as well, I think that the love bombing thing is I see in my job the other end of that quite often, when it has gone wrong, because that this person who, like you say, you may not even have met yet, who's making you feel great by telling all these wonderful things and showering you with gifts sometimes, or taking you to really expensive places and stuff, it can make you feel great. But I think the thing is to remind yourself that they don't know you either. You don't know them, and they don't know you. So they are putting you on a pedestal. There's only one way to come off a pedestal, isn't there? And it's usually down. So yeah, love bombing is I think a really, really important one to be really, really aware of when you're on the dating scene.
Absolutely.
Sorry to interrupt.
No, absolutely. I appreciate the comments. And especially if you've been out of dating for a while and you're getting back in, and say you've been in a relationship for 20 years and dating has moved on considerably in the last 20 years since you were last single. So if the first person you get into talking with or dating with starts giving you all this attention and it makes you feel uncomfortable, then that's an indication that you need to step back. But it's really easy to get carried away with it, as you say, because it's new attention, it seems like a good thing, it seems like what you want, but it's just being aware of it. Is it too much? Do you feel the pressure? Do you feel uncomfortable and acting? And I picked a guy with a red flag on the hill, because there were so many times when I was dating that literally somebody was standing on a hill with a red flag and I ignored it, because red flags are very, very easy to ignore, because we don't want to admit that something isn't right or that something hasn't worked out again. But it's much better to notice the red flag at the point when you notice it, take a step back, talk to somebody about it, talk to a friend, talk to a colleague, anybody who can help you decipher whether you're reading something into it that isn't there, but potentially something that is there. Red flags. Oh, right, let's move on. The other thing that people talk to me about quite a lot is online dating. Every single day, somebody wants to come and talk about online dating, the pros and the cons of it. But people always want to know about how to make their profile stand out, because let's face it, there are millions of people on dating apps, and you need to somehow stand out from the crowd. So what we need to do, obviously, is we need to make them want to swipe right. That's the most important thing. We're trying to catch their attention. We're trying to stand out from the crowd. We want somebody to swipe right so that they then come into our profile and have a look properly, see what they like, and then hopefully send us a message or reply to a message that we've sent to them. So we need to make our profile stand out. I really want to be able to say that the best way to make your profile stand out is like with your sparkling personality and some really exciting questions. But unfortunately, when we're in a society whereby we're online a lot, we scroll a lot, and we need to break the scroll. And the only way that you're going to break the scroll on dating apps is with a photograph, a really, really good photograph. So if you haven't got a photograph that stands out, that looks different, that is irresistible to somebody to make them stop swiping, they're just going to keep on swiping. So what I wanted to do on these slides is just give you some examples of things that you should and shouldn't be using with your photographs. So on the left is me about 12 years ago. I'm in Australia. I'm not that skinny anymore. I wish I was. It's a photograph. I've got sunglasses on. You can't really see me. I could be anywhere. It looks like I'm having fun. I'm clearly quite pale, but it doesn't really tell me anything. It doesn't tell somebody who's wanting to date me what I really look like. It doesn't tell me anything other than I went somewhere hot, which could be anywhere. The other picture, I look bored. I'm in a beige office. There's not a lot going on. Again, doesn't really tell people very much about me. So my point here is, don't use old photographs that don't look like you anymore. Don't use photographs whether you've got sunglasses on, hats on, things that we can't see people properly. And don't use photos where you look like you're bored at work, which I was. This is another thing I see quite a lot, because I sometimes do audits for clients around their profile. So I will jump into their app and I will look at what they've got on. I'll look at their photos, I'll look at what they've written, and I'll look at how they're communicating with people that they've connected with. Photographs like this I see all the time, because people want to show that they're fun, that they go out, that they do stuff, that they've got a social life. But the problem is when you don't know somebody, I could be any one of those girls, and the person that I'm trying to attract on the app is not going to have a clue. So it's a pointless photograph. So what we don't want is wasted photographs, because you've got very few seconds to attract people using your photograph. So we need to make it a good one.
I saw a chap on a dating website, Laura, who had used a kind of group photo of himself and 2 or 3 of his friends. And the 2 or 3 friends were way, way, way more attractive than he was.
Oh, no.
So no. It was very tempting to send him a message to say, I've swiped right, but could you introduce me to the chap 2 to your left, please?
Oh,
There's another downside of the group message, the group photograph.
Absolutely. I mean, I was going to say the same about this, because guys, you know, the car, I can't cope with car photos, and fish. I don't know why guys think that, you know, a photograph with a dead fish is going to be attractive to women. And, you know, it makes me just think you need a dating coach, because I haven't got any female clients who would find that attractive. However, the guy in this particular photo is quite cute. So I don't know, maybe it's me that's wrong, but I see a lot of this, guys leaning on cars that they don't even necessarily own, and guys with big dead fish. So please, you know, we really like to avoid these kind of photos, because you need to think about the person who's looking at the photograph as opposed to what you think. So it needs to be a photo that you think will attract a guy or a girl, whoever you're looking to attract, as opposed to what you think is a good photograph. So these are all of me, obviously, and it's a combination of photos that would work. So selfies, absolutely, there's nothing wrong with selfies, but they need to be clear of your face, no hats and glasses and things that are going to get in the way and stop people getting a really good idea of what you look like. It's always useful to have a full-length photo. I think people like to know what people look like in a full photo. Photos also need to be recent. Yeah, I can't even begin to tell you how many times I've seen photos of people and I'm like, is that you? What year was that taken? And they're like, 2015. And it's like, you know, I kind of still think 2015 was last year, but it wasn't. It was a really long time ago. And you know, I've definitely aged a lot since 2015. So we need to make sure photographs are up to date and show what you look like now, because it will just be disappointing when you meet face to face. The two photos in the middle are obviously professional photographs. And with my clients, I do encourage professional photographs. We've got a really good photographer that I work with who specialises in dating shots, and it does just make the difference. They're much brighter, they're much clearer, they stop the scroll. And if people wanted to talk to have a chat with me later about who we use, I'll happily let you know, because it does just make you stand out from the crowd, which I think is pretty good.
Laura, what's your advice around colour and using colour in the photos? Or, you know, really bright coloured clothes?
Love colour in the photos. I mean, as you can see in the top middle one, that's my favourite because of the colour of my skirt, and it goes with the wall, the painting on the wall. And I just think if you're going to use colour, that's definitely the way to go in terms of getting people to stop the scroll and to sort of come back to you and go, because you remember, everyone's attracted to colour. Definitely, if you want to stand out, if you've got a bright red coat or you've got a bright green coat, use it. Get your friends to take some photos, because you don't need to pay for professional photos. Yes, they look great, but if you've got a friend who's a bit handy with an iPhone, you could just go out on a Saturday afternoon and ask them to take some photos of you in the park, at the beach, wherever you might be. Wear a bright colour. You just need to stand out. It's all about standing out at this point. So a couple more tips for online profiles. When you're writing about yourself, you need to make sure that it's roughly about 80% about you and what you do and what you like to do, where you want to be, where you want to go, what you enjoy doing. And then about 20% about what you're looking for. Because I think people seem to forget along the lines that they need to be telling people what they're looking for. Because if, for example, if you're somebody who is 35 years old and you 100% do not want to have children, you need to make sure that you're letting people know, because otherwise you're just going to attract people who potentially do want children, and then down the line it's a waste of your time. It really is important to me when I'm working with clients that they get focused, because I think what we get quite a lot of is people just chucking darts. When they're going dating, they chuck darts, they hope something sticks, and then things don't, and it spirals. When you're dating, you need to be quite focused, you need to be quite specific, you need to know what you want, and then you need to focus in on getting what you want. So in your profile, it's really important to be clear about what it is you're looking for. And that's especially in terms of age, location, children are the big ones, but be very specific. The other thing that's really important as well is to give people a reason to want to message you. I've seen so many boring dating profiles in my time, and even if you've got the best photographs in the world, people are going to read your profile and they've got no reason to message you. There's lots of ways you could do this. You can do like the either or thing. So, you know, do you prefer ant or deck? Do you prefer cats or dogs? Do you prefer wine or beer? There's also things like controversial statements. So you could say something controversial like, I really hate ant and deck. Who hates ant and deck? But you could say something like that would make people go, what? Why do you hate ant and deck? Or I hate Indian food, or I hate Chinese food, or I hate pizza. Something that would get somebody to go, why? You know, you want somebody to you want a hook, essentially, to hook people in, to get them to message you. So that's one of the things is really important when I go through people's profiles. You need to put something on there. If you date in a small town, for example, you could put, I love a coffee from Joe's Cafe. Have you ever been to Joe's Cafe? And it just gives people an opportunity to go, I know Joe's Cafe. Joe's Cafe is great. And he's just giving you a way in to have a conversation. It sounds really basic, but it's just things that people completely and utterly miss.
No, can I just ask a question on that one?
Yeah.
Are there people out there, because I think one of the really hard things for anybody, or well, some people might find it quite easy, is writing about yourself and trying to promote yourself. Is that something you can help with? Are there people out there that can help people write profiles? Because, you know, sitting down with a pen and paper and trying to big yourself up, or, you know, it's for most people, you just wouldn't even know where to begin.
Yeah, no, absolutely. With my matchmaking clients, I write the profile for them.
Oh,
With dating coach clients, the final part of the program is where I get people back into dating. I help them do their profile, help them with the photos. We get it all nailed down on the right app or the right site, whichever one they want to be on. And then, yeah, I can help with that. And I'm happy, you know, if there's anybody here who wants me to have a look at their profile and give some advice and feedback, I'm absolutely happy to do that.
And that was one other thing, and you've just covered, one of the other things I wrote down is, what's your kind of sort of, I'm not on the market and I wouldn't even know where to begin. I'd need somebody like you if I was. There's, you know, just talking to female and male friends, you know, there's so many different sites, apps, all this kind of thing, free ones, paid for. What's your opinion on, you know, free, paid for, you know, is there better ones? Is there, you know, that type of thing?
Yeah, it's a really saturated market. And the other problem that you've got is there's going to be people, especially if you're in a small town, is that people will be on all of them. So you'll see the same people on the main ones: Tinder, Hinge, Bumble. These are the main three that people seem to be on at the moment. Tinder has been around it was around when I was single. It kind of came out at the point that I met my husband. So you're looking at 10 years ago. And it started off with everybody being on it. Then it became a site where, you know, people did meet long-term partners, and then it became a bit of a hookup site. I know that there's about 80% of guys on Tinder. So it's, you know, if you're a guy, Tinder's not the place for you. If you're a woman, yeah, there's lots of people there available, lots of guys, but are they going to be looking for the same things as you? I think it's about getting clear on what it is that you are looking for. And the coaching that I do is all around what you want and how you're going to get there. There are lots of new apps coming out as well. At the moment, there's Thursday, which is a really big one. And the thing I love about Thursday is that you can only access it on a Thursday. So for the rest of the week, you're not constantly scrolling, constantly checking, constantly look to see who's liked or messaged or whatever. You can only access it on a Thursday. So that's one that people seem to be using quite a lot at the moment. There's another one that's come on the market recently called Ready, REDDI. And that's for people who are either single parents or who have had children on their own through choice, or who want to have children. It's people who are a bit more targeted and people who are a bit more ready to settle down and have a family. So that one's definitely worth having a look at. There's Raya, which is another one which is essentially for celebrities and people with quite a lot of money. And it's really interesting because you have to be invited onto that one, and you have to have 3 or 4 introductions before they'll even consider you. So that's one I don't have any clients on that. I have one client trying to get on there, but she hasn't done yet. And then there's another new one called The League, which again, I haven't had anybody on there yet, so I don't really know how well it's working, but their marketing is targeted at, it's better to have 3 really good dates a year than 100 bad dates a year. And I totally agree. So I'm kind of hoping that one's going to take off and be useful. But to answer your question properly, the paid and the unpaid, for me, I think if someone's going to pay, they're definitely more ready. They want to get into a relationship. They want something a bit more serious. The free ones tend to just attract people who essentially are just looking for an ego boost, people who can just jump on and have somebody flatter them for an evening, or maybe even in a relationship already. But I just feel like with the ones where you pay, even if you only pay a little bit, then that's better. And there is
Laura, sorry. Does it depend what age bracket you're in, which app you would recommend? So is somebody in the chat asking, what about for an older, well-established woman? Which would be the best app to be on if you were, I don't know, over 50, for example?
I think if I was over 50, I think probably what I'd be looking at is Match.com and eHarmony and things like that, as opposed to the apps, to be honest.
Right.
I did have a little look around Match.com recently with a client, and it was good. It was better than what I've seen on apps. So I would probably start there. But like I said, there's so many coming out that I really struggle to keep up with them, because every day there's a new one. I think I don't know where they're all coming from. It's such a saturated market.
Oh, I know you said that, you know, all these different apps and sites have different benefits that they can bring. From your point of view, do you think there's merit in kind of sticking to one particular app if you like the principle that they're promoting, or do you think it's better to try and join various ones to test the waters and see who might be available on different things?
I would start with one, and the main reason being is it can become a full-time job. And you know, yeah, it's 10 years ago that I was dating, but I was on multiple apps and sites then, and it was like a full-time job. And there's even an app now, I can't remember the name of it, where you can put all your dating apps into this app, and then so all your messages are in one place from all the different apps. It's wild.
That
right?
sounds exhausting.
Exactly. This is it. And in a world where we've got, you know, WhatsApp and Facebook Messenger and LinkedIn and, you know, Instagram and everything else, it's just more social media to put in. I'm really keen that people get targeted, get focused and specific. So I think people need to start on one and then work from there. And then if that one's not working, then think about another one. But again, like I spoke to a client yesterday and she'd been on Bumble for like 2 years and then was complaining it wasn't working. And I was like, why don't you try something else? And it just hadn't occurred to her to try something else. So there's so many different things in the market. You try, it's the same with solving any problem. You try one thing, if it doesn't work, you look for another solution and you try that. So with dating, if you're going to go back out and get on the internet, I would start with one because it just becomes too overwhelming.
Is there a particular way to support, and Claire, I suppose this might be a question for you as well, as Laura, is there a way to support our kind of family and friends and colleagues who are going through that, perhaps a burnout phase where they've experienced some rejections or things perhaps haven't gone as well as they initially anticipated and they're feeling disheartened or they're kind of disillusioned with the process? Is there any advice that you can give?
I missed half of that question because it's not a very good line, but what I think you asked was about whether there's if you struggle with rejection and you've been rejected online, what kind of advice would you give? I think
give to colleagues and friends if that were then going through that situation.
I think the main advice is it's difficult to not take it personally, but it's not just you. Literally every single person I have any kind of call with wants to talk about how the apps have made them feel. They felt a bit rejected. This person has ghosted me. This person blocked me. We had a good date, or we didn't have a date. We've been talking for ages. They disappeared. It's just really bad etiquette, unfortunately, that seems to happen quite a lot in the dating world. And I think when people understand that it's not just them, that this is a problem across the world, that people do have bad manners, I think it's easy to accept. Rejection is always difficult, and the fear of rejection is even bigger than the rejection itself. I think people build themselves up. But with the apps, I think you've got to take it with a pinch of salt. I think you've got to be open-minded. Claire, I don't know what you'd add.
Yeah, no, well, I would add, this is the thing is, you don't know anything about these people. So you don't know, you might be messaging a person, you don't know anything about them, you don't know how many other people they're also messaging. So I think it pays to kind of almost build yourself up to be actually almost quite hard-nosed when you go in. You're going to have to reject people. You're going to probably get rejected yourself. And the other thing that I find quite useful to remember is that actually, and I don't know if this is true, but I think there are profiles on there who actually don't even really exist, or there are profiles on there of people who used to be on the site, but they aren't there anymore, but their profile is still up there. So you might message. I remember messaging 3 or 4 people one weekend and getting no replies back off anybody. That doesn't say something about me. That says either they're not interested in me, in which case don't want to meet them anyway, because that just ends up in more pain later down the line, or maybe they don't even really exist and they're not looking at their messages. So I think it's about putting a different meaning on what it is that's happening. So the fact is, this person hasn't messaged back, or this person has ghosted me. The meaning you put on it results in how you feel about it. So if you put the meaning on it of, this person clearly thinks I'm awful and I'm not worthy, etc., then you're going to feel one way. But if you can put a different meaning on it, this person has missed out on something really special, i.e. me, then that leads you to feel totally differently about it. So I think for me, it would be about thinking about the meaning that you're putting on the fact.
I think you're totally right. And I think it's also the fact that people don't know you at this point. You're just a photo on the screen, and you don't have a relationship. I mean, I'll talk later, and one of my top 3 tips is kind of crossing over into this topic as well, because it's really frustrating to watch people do it. But yeah, it's taking it with a pinch of salt. And I think it's really difficult when you've come out, again, like we said earlier, you've come out of a long-term relationship. So you've been married for 20, 25 years, and dating is a minefield now. And I think it's difficult not to take things personally if you do get a rejection the first time, but you've just got to remember that people don't know you. So they're not, you can't take, it's difficult to say don't take it personally, because you do. But I think as you get a bit more battle worn in dating, and you realize just what the etiquette is like, you kind of have to just step back and put a bit of reality in it and say, they don't know me. They don't know how great I am. And somebody out there will know how great I am. And then that's the person I'm looking for. Okay, so let's move on. One of the things one of the things people say all the time is they talk about the holy grail of meeting someone, and everybody wants to know how on earth I'm supposed to meet someone if I don't go on dating apps or dating sites. And it's a really interesting conversation, because people shut down straight away, and they're just like, I don't know. I don't want to be on the apps, but I'm on the apps because if I'm not on the apps, I might miss someone, or I'm never going to meet anybody if I'm not on the apps. But then it turns out they haven't ever met anybody from an app. They've not enjoyed it. It's not good for self-esteem. It's not good for their confidence, but they're still on the apps. So I kind of feel like it's fear of missing out. It's FOMO. So people are on apps a lot of the time because they literally just are worried that they're going to miss out if they're not. But what I want people to start doing, what I'd love people to start doing, is being a bit more old school and being a bit more, getting themselves out there, being a bit more confident, I guess, to have interactions with human beings. It's really difficult after COVID because we all work from home a lot more. We're all a lot more insular. We like to be in our scruffs, sitting on our sofa, tapping on our laptops, as opposed to being in the office and being out and about in the cafe near the office or on the train on the way to the office. So we're just not out as much as we used to be. And I think that's been really restrictive for people. But I really want people to get up and get out there and really start speaking to people again and having human interactions. I've got one of my first ever clients, actually. She is a beautiful American lady, and she'd been married for a long time, and they're divorced, and she hadn't dated for such a long time. She didn't know what to do. She was American, but she couldn't understand why British men weren't interested in her, because they never talked to her. They never spoke to her. She just couldn't get it. And then she went to France on holiday. And she came back and she was like, oh my God, I'm moving to France. The French men love me. I got loads of attention. It was amazing. Oh my God, the French guy's great. And when we unpicked it, what was going on was that when she was in France, she was on holiday. It was sunny. She was happy. She was dressed up. She was enjoying herself. She was open to chatting to people because she didn't have the pressure of being here and of working and of the misery of the greyness of the summer. The greyness of last winter. And she was just really happy. So we then broke it down, and what we realised is that when she's here, she goes from home to work, she goes from here to there, she doesn't talk to people, she wasn't having any interactions with anybody. Whereas when she was on holiday, she was much more open and much more aware of the people around her and was chatting to people. So I gave her a little bit of homework to start doing that the first week after she got back. And lo and behold, the following week, she was like, oh my God, I met this guy, and this person chatted to me. And it was just really interesting to watch her talk to people and have human interactions and just get out there a bit more. And it wasn't even just people that she wanted to date, it was just other people, just having interactions and speaking to people at the bus stop, in the supermarket, at work, wherever it might be. And it really helped her, and she really then went on and she actually did meet somebody completely offline, which was great. So one of the things I say to people all the time is, even though you think you won't meet somebody offline, the majority of relationships start offline. So people are still meeting organically, people are still meeting in the good old-fashioned way. So for me, the best way to start doing this is to expand your social circle. So again, I hear a lot of, I don't have any single friends, everybody's married, everybody's got kids. When I do see my friends, I go to their house for dinner, we don't go out. So it's about you looking at what you enjoy doing and how you can enjoy doing that with other people. So for example, if you're into running, could you join a running club? And I'm not talking joining a running club to meet a guy or a woman. I'm talking about meeting new friends, making new single friends, because we've still got a situation whereby, you know, say Claire and I, so Claire lives in Brighton with me, and I go, oh Claire, yeah, we're going out for some drinks, and I bring a friend of mine, and you get on with her, and she's got a single friend who she thinks you might be interested in. The more your social circle is expanded, the more opportunity there is to meet other single people, and the best way to meet people is through other people. It's just the best connection, because there is already a connection. I think it's better for incidentally as well, for dating etiquette. So before internet dating, we would mostly meet people through friends, colleagues, siblings, friends, people from work, whatever it might be. So there was already a social bond, essentially. So we had to behave better, because you couldn't just ignore your friend's brother, or you couldn't just ignore your friend's friend or your colleague. Whereas now, because we're all hiding behind screens, it's very easy for people to ghost, and it's just made people really, really badly mannered when it comes to dating. So if you don't want to be on the apps, you need to look at how you can expand your social circle, not with the view of, you know, meeting people, but with the view of having more experiences and enjoying your single life a bit more, being out there, just enjoying the moment. So if you're not on an app, get yourself out there, get into new hobbies, do new things. Look at your social circle already. Who is there out there? Speak to friends. Have they got any single friends? I know it sounds so obvious, but people just don't do it. The other thing as well, which, you know, obviously I'm going to mention because I am a matchmaker, matchmakers also a really good option if you don't want to be on a dating app. I always describe matchmaking as being a bit like recruitment. So if you think about a recruitment consultant, they will find you a job, and essentially I do a similar kind of thing, but with dating. So I get to know you, I find out what it is you're looking for, I find out all the important things, the deal breakers, the things that they definitely have to have, they definitely can't have. And then I go out and I headhunt, I look in the network, and I find dates. I also collaborate with other matchmakers. So it takes away all the swiping, it takes away all the pressure of looking for somebody, because I do that for you. So that's definitely something that you could potentially look for. Have you got any other ideas, Claire? I'm trying to think offline.
I was just thinking, yeah, so I was just thinking about, you know, if you're looking to meet somebody, A, go for things that you enjoy doing, but B, there are certain kinds of activity where you're more likely to meet single people as well, I think. So there's a big, for example, where I live, there's a big dancing community, and where people go to learn to dance. You don't have to go with a partner, and so lots of people meet other single people then.
Dancing is a great one.
Yeah. I often also hear, you know, but all my friends that are married and etc. From clients, and I think, you know, you've got to start thinking a little bit outside the box. So, you know, actually this is good for your self-esteem and your confidence anyway, to think about, you know, what do I enjoy, what would I like to do more of, and what would I like to spend my weekends doing, what kind of people do I want to be surrounded by, what things are important to me. And start doing some of those things, and just, like you say, expanding your social circle, not with a view to, you know, I must go out with these people, I need to meet a partner there. It's like you say, it's the extended network.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's you need to think a bit like a business networking, but social networking. Yeah. I think also there's quite a lot of dating singles events around at the moment. I run some in Brighton. If anybody's, you're based in Bristol, most people I think, but you know, there will be things in Bristol as well, speed dating events for different age groups and various kind of mingle events. There's a lot on the market now.
The other thing actually that's just sprung to my mind is, you know, this is something that I sometimes do, you know, get yourself comfortable with going places on your own. So, you know, go take a book, go and sit in a cafe. I sometimes take myself down in the summer, especially I live in a marina, and I take myself sometimes to the pub for a pint on a Friday afternoon if it's really sunny. You know, go and do stuff by yourself as well that you enjoy doing. It doesn't necessarily have to be with other people. Get a dog. Good for meeting people when you've got a dog to walk, or borrow a dog, even better.
That's a great idea. And I think there's also things like, there's lots of singles holidays as well now. So I've got a coaching client, and she's booked herself onto a singles golfing holiday. She's a really big golfer, and I was like, well, why don't you go on holiday? And she's like, oh. But then once she looked into it, she was like, oh, this is a really good idea, because, you know, I know lots of women play golf, but so do lots of guys. So she's looking to go on a holiday with a load of single guys to play golf. So she loves playing golf. So she'll have a good holiday regardless of whoever else is there. But also it's an opportunity to expand her social circle and meet new people. So there are lots of options out there. And if anybody wants me to have a look for options in Bristol, I'd be happy to do that, because there will be lots around. So yes, so don't just think that if you're not on an app, then that's it and you've got to give up, because you definitely don't. There are other options. And I think really for me, it is just important to get out there and to start talking to people. Whenever I say this to London-based clients, they're all like, talk to people? No. But actually everywhere else in the country, we do talk to each other, we do have interactions, and we do like to get to know people. So just keep doing that, and you never know you just never know who's around the corner.
There's a yes please in the chat to looking into what's available in Bristol.
Sure, I can do that.
That'd be amazing. Thank you.
No worries. Oh, let's try and move this along. Gone the wrong way. Right, top tips. This is my favourite one. And whenever people ask for the main top tip, this one is it. Because I was so bad at doing this. And we've kind of touched on this earlier on. But, you know, by the time, if I was chatting to somebody on the line, I could have been talking to them for a couple of days. By the end of that couple of days, I decided that they were going to be my husband, that I was going to introduce them to my friends, that they, you know, I can already imagine us going on holiday, like my mum's going to love them. And this would be before I'd even met them. And then I'd either meet them and they'd be awful, or I'd meet them and they'd be really nice for the first couple of days. And then by that point, I've definitely married them in my head, or they just disappear in a puff of smoke, which is really, really disappointing. And when somebody once said to me about over-investing, and it was a real revelation to me, because I just realized that this is exactly what I do. I meet somebody, or I don't meet somebody even, chat to them online, and I because I was so desperate to be in a relationship, I so wanted to be settled down like all my friends were, that I would just project onto this person that they were it. And they hadn't proven to me that they were a good human being. They hadn't proven to me that they liked me. I didn't even know if I liked them. That was irrelevant to me, because all I was thinking was, oh, this is potential. And it just sets you up to fail. Again, a client recently, he'd been chatting to a woman online for 6 weeks, every day, all day. And then when they met up, her photos were really old. She was a lot heavier than she made out. She was just nothing like he thought she was going to be. But he'd massively overinvested in her, so he felt really, really disappointed and really hurt. And I think this, again, it comes back to, if you are the talking online, the talking phase, which is really popular now. So if you're just getting back into dating, the talking phase goes something like this. You match on an app, and you have some interactions. Hey, how are you? Where do you live? What do you do? All the boring stuff. And then you start getting into sort of chatting, and then it might move on to WhatsApp, and you talk for what can be anything from a day to a month to 6 months. And it's painful, because it happens, and if you don't meet quickly, it just drifts off, and then people are still talking 6 months down the line. They haven't met this person, and it goes nowhere. And it's just such a waste of time and energy, and it's exhausting, especially if you're talking to 2 or 3 people. You could potentially be on your phone all day chatting with somebody you don't even know, who you don't even know where this is going, but because you've overinvested in this person already, you're still doing it. So to not overinvest, the best thing you can do is to get out on a date quickly. Don't be in the talking phase for a long time. Nail it down. If they don't want to meet up with you, then that's a warning sign. That's a red flag, I think. So for me, get out. And I'm also not a big overinvestor in terms of dates. So I always really suggest to clients that the first date needs to be a coffee, because I don't want people going out on a Friday night or a Saturday night. They're, especially not a first date. That's just too much time. They should be for friendships and for family, not for somebody you just met online. But best piece of advice, lunchtime is great. If you work in town, hey, I'm free between 1 and 2 on my lunch break. Shall we meet for a coffee? You've got a window of an hour to see whether there's any kind of attraction with this person. If there's not, you've got a quick exit, you've got to get back to work. If there is, it can be, oh yes, so do you fancy going out on another date? And also, you're not over-investing by getting really dressed up, really glammed up, spending loads of money on a restaurant and loads of drinks just to go there and not be into this person, which, believe me, has happened to me multiple times. So it's just so much easier just to have a quick coffee, see if there's any attraction, and then go from there. Then you're not over investing, you're not building this up to be something amazing when potentially it is, and that would be great, but potentially it's not, and then you feel like you've wasted your time, because it's just about how you manage your expectations, I think, with dating. But this is the main one. Do not overinvest. Don't make this person out to be the most amazing human being you've ever met when you haven't met them.
Laura, how quickly would you say get from message to, the kind of process I've seen is you message for a bit, you move on to WhatsApp, you might have a conversation on a video thing, and then you meet. How quickly would you go from stage one to meeting for a coffee?
I would be wanting to do it within a week or two.
Yeah.
Preferably a week, just because you don't want to waste any more time. If this person, if this person's great, then that's fantastic. But if they're not, a week, 2 weeks.
And Laura, probably that makes sense, because if you've got a catfish situation, that's probably the time to rule this out, isn't it? To actually weed this out, and you're probably going to know that within a week.
Yeah, exactly. It's just about not wasting your time. And the other thing as well, which I hear quite a lot, is, people who've been dating somebody for, say, 8 weeks, and then they've had one date a week, and then that person's ghosted them, and they'll be like, oh, I'm so sad, like, I don't understand, I don't know what happened, what did I do, what was wrong with me, I thought we knew each other really well, I thought this was going to be great. But my comeback to that is you went on 8 dates, so you had eight evenings with somebody, or 8 bits of time with somebody. You don't really know somebody after that. It takes a lot longer to get to know somebody. But I think when we get into the initial stages of dating, we get very, very excited if there's an attraction in particular. I mean, again, I was really bad at this. It's so funny that I advise clients on this now, because I was really, really bad at this. And I said to Claire that I wouldn't tell too many stories about my bad dating, but this one in particular is quite good. So when I was, I don't know how old I was, maybe late 20s, I met a guy. And my God, he was gorgeous. Like, he was absolutely just delicious. And I was completely obsessed with him. And we dated for a while. And then he had to leave the country because he was going traveling with his brother. And what I found out after we'd gone traveling with his brother is that when I met him, he was planning his wedding. During the time that we were dating each other, he got married. And then instead of going traveling with his brother, he was going traveling with his wife. So, there was very little I could do about that. I didn't know, but I had massively overinvested in him. Like, I thought he was the best thing since sliced bread. Turns out I was massively wrong. But I won't tell you how I got revenge on him, because that's not for now. But anyway, biggest tip: please don't overinvest. Please get through this talking phase, get out for a coffee, see if this person's worth your time, and go from there. And then remember that as you get to know somebody, as chemistry and connection and hormones and pheromones take over, again, you don't know somebody until you've been with them for a while. And whilst it might feel amazing and lovely, you don't know that person yet. So it's just, whilst I don't want people to not enjoy all that, because it's so exciting when you do meet somebody you've got a connection with, it's also being aware that you're not over-investing. So please make sure that you're still seeing your friends, that you're still making time for other people, that you're seeing your children or your parents or whoever it might be, and it's not just all on this person, because it's just not healthy.
I always think, Laura, as well, one thing to look out for as well, how this person responds or behaves or communicates when you have your first disagreement. And that's a really good sign to be looking out for, how they communicate about something tricky.
And also how you put your boundaries in. So if you don't want to overinvest and yet somebody's wanting to see you all the time, or I remember there was a guy who again, I'd never even met him, but we were texting quite a lot, and then he started getting angry with me because I didn't reply to a good night text, and I was like,
red flag, massive red flag waving.
Absolutely. So it is about watching all for all these things as they come up. But it's difficult when you're single and you don't want to be, and you want to be in a relationship, and all these opportunities come up. It's really difficult not to dive in head first.
Yeah, I have a really good client story actually about this. I had a client who was in her early 60s, and she went on a speed dating thing and met this chap, and they set up a first date. And on the day of the first date, he messaged her to say, "I'm really sorry, I can't meet up with you later this evening anymore. Can we rearrange?" So she spoke to a few friends who were all saying, well, you've given the benefit of that. Maybe one of his children was sick, or maybe this, that, and the other happened, or maybe. But she thought about it and was so proud of her. She wrote a message to him which basically said, I'm really sorry. Somebody who is willing to prioritise me is going to get my first date, so I don't think we'll be rearranging. Thank you. Off she went. I thought that was brilliant. You know,
Yeah.
on a first date, he didn't want to prioritise her. So whatever the reason was.
It's really difficult because I've seen this. Normally, I would totally agree with you, but I've seen it from a different perspective recently. When I've got one of my male matchmaking clients was very, very poorly over Christmas, and I know he was because I'd spoken to him, and you could tell.
I think that then you need to say that. You can say that then, can't you?
And absolutely, but he was due to go out on a date with a lady from another matchmaker, and he had said to her, I'm really, really sorry. He was going from Brighton into London as well. So, it wasn't just popping down for a coffee. And he said, look, I'm really unwell and please can we rearrange it? It'd be really great. I do want to see, but I'm not very well. And she just decided, she didn't reply to his text message, and she just went to her matchmaker and said, I don't want to go on this date anymore. So didn't explain to him why, and had just assumed that he was sacking her off for something better, which he absolutely 100% wasn't. But it's really difficult because I think we go into, like you just said, maybe their cat died, maybe their mum's in hospital, maybe there's been some kind of zombie apocalypse. There's definitely a reason why this person hasn't contacted me, and you go through everything, and it can get really quite unhealthy.
Yeah, totally agree.
So it's those boundaries, isn't it? And being like, one of the things I do with dating clients, with coaching clients, is to do a dating plan. And one of the things we do on the dating plan is things such as that. At what point, what is a red flag to me? How will I know it's a red flag, and how will I behave? What will I do? What will it look like? And what will my actions be? So it's really important to be aware of those.
Yeah.
So yes, don't overinvest. Another one which I talk to people about all the time, knowing what you want. All the time, it's always my first question to a coaching client, and 99 times out of 100 people will say, well, I don't want somebody who is late, I don't want somebody who is won't commit, I don't want somebody who's X, Y, and Z. And I always point out that I'm not asking you what you don't want, I'm asking you what you do want. And when you go back and say, what do you want, people really struggle. People can't tell you what they want. And I think it's really, really important to get clear on your values. So what's important to you in your life, but what's also important to you in relationships. Because if you're not clear on these, again, you're chucking darts. So you need to be exactly clear on what you want and write it down. I've got a little values exercise that I do with people, which is really basic, which again, I can send out to people if you would like that, just for you to spend some time in an evening looking at it and thinking about what it is you want from a relationship and what you want from life. Because if you don't know and you meet somebody, how are you going to know whether this is the right person for you if you don't know what you want? So really important for me is to be clear on what you want. I've already mentioned dating plans. So making a dating plan and then sticking to it. A dating plan is a fluid document. It can be changed, but the way I see it is, I wish I'd had a dating plan when I was single. It would have helped me no end. So with my clients, I do a dating plan, and I'm not talking about planning dates. I'm talking about a dating plan. So it's thinking about what you will accept, what you won't accept. So for example, clients might put, I won't kiss somebody until the 3rd date, or I won't sleep with somebody until the 5th date, or whatever it might be. If somebody doesn't call me back within 24 hours, that's not okay for me. It's really important for me if somebody communicates with me and I expect it within this kind of time frame. What happens if that doesn't occur? Because when we're in something, when it's new and it's exciting and the hormones are going and the chemistry and the attraction and it's all really great, mostly talking about myself, but also with clients, I was really good at ignoring all the things that I could spot when I wasn't triggered by this amazing person that I thought I'd met. And I would let things go. My boundaries would slip. My expectations would slip. And I would put up with stuff that really just wasn't okay. Like with the married guy that I was talking about earlier, there were red flags. There were things that I wasn't happy with. Like, for example, I never went to his house. Obviously, it was quite clear why I couldn't go to his house. But at the time, I just thought, oh, he likes coming to my house because I live alone. But there were so many things, like he just couldn't commit to anything. He was never available. Oh, and the other one, he didn't want to be friends on social media. And so, I mean, why wouldn't you want to be friends with me on social media if, you know, we've been dating and we've been together? So there were lots of different things. And I accepted all of this because my boundaries were askew with. I'd over-invested in him, and he was just so good looking that I couldn't really see past that. And so if I'd had a dating plan, which I'd have written when I wasn't caught up in the attraction, I think it would have been really useful for me to see all my patterns, and to see what I was missing, basically. So again, I've got a very I used to have quite a like a specific dating plan which people would tick off, whereas now I keep it very vague, because I realize that everybody's things are different. Everybody brings something different to the table. But again, if you want the template for the dating plan, I'm more than happy to share that. So you can do.
I think there'll be a guest please to all of these offers of resources, Laura.
Yeah, no problem whatsoever. It's just a Word document that you can keep on your laptop, that you can update as you go along. You can make changes, because there's a section for like the beginning bits of dating, and then a section for sort of after 2 months, and then a bit for more serious dating. And I just think it's just a good thing to be able to refer back to and think, am I doing that? That wasn't acceptable when I wrote my plan, so I need to go back to that.
I think it can also give you, I'm quite a big fan of, you know, once the relationship is something that you think is going somewhere, having kind of almost like review meetings with that person. So this will give you topics that you can bring up to say, I noticed this and that made me feel like this, and I wondered if we could talk about it. Could we do something differently, or whatever it might be? It's going to give you, it's going to give you kind of the guidelines to bring up things that matter to you within that relationship.
Absolutely. And I think also, if you've got a good friend, like I know you said you're going to meet your friend after this, if you could have an accountability partner to do your plan together, so someone that you're confident and you don't, you know, you're not going to be embarrassed telling them your innermost thoughts about dating. If you've got a friend like that, do it together, because it holds you to account, because that is one of the things with the plan. You can just go, oh well. Whereas actually,
I can see that you rip it up. Actually, no, it's not working out how I wanted it to, so I'm just going to like put it to the side.
Yeah, or just, he's absolutely amazing. Oh my god, he's so great. Ignore everything on the plan. So if you've got a really good friend, it's a really good thing to do together over a glass of wine. And
very good idea.
Get quite specific about what's important and what's not. So that would be one of my biggest tips. And the main thing is the chucking darts. If you haven't got a dating strategy, then you're just fumbling around in the dark. You really need to get clear and get targeted on what you want to do, what apps you want to be on, what kind of message you're sending out, what kind of pictures you're putting out, and then also the kind of datey that you want to be, essentially. And I think that's me.
That's brilliant, Laura. Thank you very much. I don't know if we've only got a few minutes left, but if there are any questions, please do pop them in the chat now. And I don't know if you want to, once everyone's had a time to just write down the details there, but they will be sent out, of course, by Stowe. If you want to close the presentation down, then everyone will put back on the screen. I don't know if anyone from Stowe or Steph, if you've got any questions to ask to Laura.
I think that would be good, Laura, if I could just ask. So your service, the sort of matchmaking that you actually put together, you would tailor your approach depending upon your client?
Oh yeah.
So basically it would be what app to use, what approach to take, potentially to look at clubs. So you'd look at the whole spectrum depending on your client's needs. Would that be right?
Absolutely. So the matchmaking and the coaching are kind of different. So the matchmaking is just me essentially looking for dates, for like understanding someone, knowing what they're looking for, being really clear on what I need to go and look for, and then looking in my network, looking in other matchmakers' networks, and then headhunting. So it takes time. It's not like online dating. I'm not going to just produce 100 men and go, there you go, or 100 women and go, there you go. It takes time, because I want to find the right matches for people, because I could put 10 people in front of you, but they might not be your criteria. And if you're going to pay me to find somebody, I need to find somebody that is what you're looking for. But the coaching side is essentially, it's not me looking for dates for people, it's me trying to get people ready for dating. So I've got a 12-week program. The first 4 weeks is looking backwards a little bit, which I know I'm not sure what kind of coach Claire is, but I call myself a coach, but I'm not a purist coach in the sense that it's not all forward focusing, because I think with dating, you have to look in the rearview mirror a little bit. You have to look at your patterns and your history, because that's where the answers are.
Yeah.
So I'm being distracted now because I can see the chat. So it's about getting specific, and then the understanding your patterns, and then the middle part is about planning. So again, the dating planning, vision boarding, being specific about setting goals, how we're going to achieve the goals. And then in the final part of the program, which is my favorite part, I do send people off for a photo shoot, and then I do all the hand holding of getting people back on whichever app they want. We look at whichever app would suit them. We get a profile up and running, we get the photos up and running, and I help them decipher text messages and get on dates and plan dates and debrief after dates and all that kind of stuff. So all the fun part.
Yeah.
Somebody's asking what your success rate is. I don't know if you've got like
That's the one that
scientific
popped up.
breakdown of that.
Yeah, I haven't had any weddings yet, but I'm working on it, and I have got one couple at the moment who, speaking of over-investing, what I've realised is that I do as a matchmaker is over-invest in people. Instead of over-investing in my own dates, I over-invest in other people's. So I have got a couple at the moment who are great, and I'm just like, please let this be the first one. So yeah, it's really hard to measure. It's hard for me to say, because there's been successful dates, people who've dated for a while, but for me success would be a marriage, obviously, but I haven't had that yet, but I'm working on it.
Brilliant. And the other question that I've got, if you can answer quite quickly, is how do you, if you're the person who actually decides you don't like the person that you've dated maybe once or twice or three times, what's good etiquette and how to let them down gently, effectively, so not to do to them what you don't want them to do to you?
Yeah, so no ghosting. Okay, so I'm really glad you asked this, because it's just so simple. And for me, it's basic manners. You know, like when we were younger, we were taught by our parents to say please and thank you and be polite, because, you know, we're British, we like to stand in queues, and then and be polite, and we don't like people to push in, but then when it comes to dating, we just disappear. I always think it's a really good idea just to have a text message prepped, and it's just so simple. All it needs to say is, hey, so-and-so, it was really lovely to meet you. I had a really lovely date. Unfortunately, there was no spark for me, but I wish you well in your endeavours or your journey or your life. So it's just so simple. And I think we've talked about this before, haven't we? So it's a rejection, and people handle rejection differently. So you might get one person who'll say, oh, thanks very much, I appreciate, you know, I really enjoyed meeting you as well. But there might be somebody else who'll be a bit like, why are you saying that? I'm great. Or there might be somebody who just doesn't reply. People react in all kinds of different ways. But you can't control how somebody else behaves. You can only control how you behave. And if you can walk away from a situation thinking, I did that right, I was polite, I shut it down, I haven't ghosted them, I haven't left them hanging, but they're aware that this is going to go no further.
Yeah, totally agree with you. If there aren't any more questions, we're going to go over time if we're not careful. So that was fantastic. Thank you very much, Laura. So much useful information. There is one question here. What if the person doesn't accept polite rejection, keeps pushing? If you're on, well, I'll give you my answer for this very quickly, if that's okay. If you're on a dating app, then you can block them so that you don't get any more messages from them. In real life, that would be probably more sort of going no contact, blocking their texts and so on and so forth if they start to push it too far. Don't know if you agree with that, Laura.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But it's also a case, I wouldn't move on to WhatsApp or to giving your phone number out until you've been talking to somebody for a while. And in fact, to be honest, I probably wouldn't do that until after I've been on a date with somebody, because you don't really want somebody to have your mobile phone number. No.
So thank you ever so much, Laura. I think if you can send, you know, all those resources and things through to Kate, so that would be amazing. And we will get an email out to everybody with those resources attached. But all that remains to say is thank you so much for coming on. It's been
thank you very
really
much.
Really interesting.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.